Start recording.
All right, time is 2:05 or 2:03. I'm going to call the Special Committee of the Public Safety meeting to order. For purposes of compliance, I need to do attendance. So I'm going to start with the committee members first. Ms. Dennis, Mr. Buckholz, Mr. Schlueter, Mr. Van Etten. All right, now we're going to go down the line. For the purposes of open records, because this is a special meeting, I need you to state your name. And if the spelling is wonderful, Ms. Lehner is going to ask you probably to spell the last name. I'm going to start with the people in the room first, and then after that, we'll have people identify who are on Zoom.
Lieutenant Gregory Jeropsky of Sawyer County Sheriff's Department.
Sheriff Doug Morotek. Chief Deputy Joe Sedera.
Tom Hoff, Sawyer County Administrator.
Jessica Hutchison, K-12 School Principal and Superintendent, LCO.
Craig Olson, Hayward Superintendent.
E.T. Willing, City Hayward Police Department.
Wes Peters, City of Hayward Police Department.
Joel Clapero, City of Hayward Police Department.
I don't know.
Tim DeBurrow, LCO Police Department.
Andrew Grimm, Winter School District.
Cindy Lehner, Deputy County Clerk.
It's gonna want me to do the stupid things.
Gilbert Kingfisher, LCO Schools.
Paul Wessel, Hurricane Busing.
All right, for those who are on Zoom, I don't have an order or preference, but can you state your name and spell your last name for the record?
Are you able to hear me?
Yep.
Okay, this is Chedra White from Indian Head Community Action Agency, Head Start. I'm also going to be joined with Margaret Guyette, our transportation manager from Head Start. We have a little, I was the one on the Samsung, and so I was having some audio issues and couldn't chime in, so.
Okay, thank you for being here.
And the spelling of my name.
Go ahead. Can you spell your name? Anybody else on Zoom?
This is Rebecca Roker. Fundraising and Roper, Legal Counsel.
Okay. Next.
Adam Zopp, Principal of Winter.
Thank you. ZOPP. Next.
Pat Sturzel, District Administrator, Bruce School District.
Spell the last name.
S-T-U-R-Z-L.
Next.
Hello?
Go ahead, Frank.
Frank Zufall. Hollywood wannabe.
Who's the person with Chandra? Miss White?
Yes, with me is Margaret, last name Guyette, G-U-Y-E-T-T-E, Transportation Manager for Indian Head Community Action Agency, Head Start.
All right, we're going to get started. First, I need to, Madam Clerk, are we complying with the open records law? All right, we are in compliance. It's posted on all the websites, all the locations, and all the members have been notified via email as well as on the county website. The agenda for today is, this is a special meeting, so we only have one agenda item, and it's to discuss school bus safety. Because it's noticed, I don't think I need a motion to approve the agenda. Mr. Hoff, do I? There are no changes. All right, so I want to get started here. One, I want to thank the LCO College for hosting us. Finding locations that are compliant with the COVID is becoming more of a challenge as we go forward. I'm without a mask because I'm more than 6 feet away from everybody, and it's really warm in here, and I'd be sweating and my eyes would be steaming. But I want to thank everybody for taking time out today to come in and talk about this issue. This has been an issue with the county board for a long time, but it's been an issue with the schools and law enforcement and the busing for far longer. And so what we're hoping today is to kind of get a consensus as to how we can approach this. So here's what I worked on. All right, well. I'm not the host. Mr. Colson, can we transfer the hosting duties back to the college?
Oh, sure. One moment.
Unmute Mike so they can speak whenever. We're going to probably spend more time.
Okay.
Okay.
Try now.
There we go. All right, so today's a special meeting. Today we're going to talk about what the issue is, school bus safety. We're going to talk about what's been discussed, and then hopefully we can wrap up with what we're going to try to accomplish. School bus safety. Greatest risk to students is not riding a bus, but approaching or leaving one. When I was doing the research and when I heard the testimony of everybody who was participating in these meetings, Nahasa is the one that does the national studies. You look at our website, it says that less than 1% of people are actually submitting. Now, it's an unacceptable approach. I think we should be looking at 100%, safety for students coming on there, because it's one child that dies, that's one family, one community that's impacted. So our goal is to try to, achieve that rating. These are the deaths in the United States from 2007 to 2018. This is from the HASDA. The thing that we want to really see on here is 117 for the year 2018. 9 of them were school bus passengers, but you also had school bus drivers, occupants of the other vehicle, pedestrians. These are the people who were died with or fatalities in some kind of school bus related incident. This is also from the HASTA. This talks about the injuries, more rounded. I couldn't find something more specific, but as you can look on here, this is something that is actually, it's not going away. It's not getting any better. We're looking at 13,000 types of reported injuries and 4,000 impacted students that are on buses, and this is nationwide. I actually think that this number is not wholly accurate. I think it's more of a generalization that was put on a federal website to try to address the concerns. I think this is an underestimate, because what we're going to talk about is how difficult it is for people who are in a school bus incident or a school bus passenger issue, where it's difficult for them to report the information. This is what the Wisconsin Department of Transportation has on their website. Says basically what everyone here knows: you need to stop 20 feet away. It talks about the flashing yellow lights and the flashing red lights. And when we get into the statutory component, the buses that operate in the city actually have more regulations to be in compliance with than they do like in the rural areas. So there's a yellow light and there's a red light, flashing light, red lights. What's happening is that vehicles are being more aggressive when they get around school buses. In fact, what they're trying to do is when they hit the yellow, is they're taking that not as a cautionary thing, as like, the green is go, yellow means go faster. So, but this is what DOT has been putting out there. I read it. If you look at it, I don't know. I mean, it's It's necessary, it fits the legal requirements, and this is what we should expect people to do. If they follow this, we don't have this issue, but we have this issue. This is the statute that talks about this is the law that's supposed to protect the kid that gets on the bus. It's it's pretty crazy. Basically, it says the subject of an owner of a vehicle involved in a violation of 346.48 sub 1 shall be liable for violation as provided in this section. The operator of a school bus who observes a violation may prepare a written report indicating a violation is incurred. If possible, the report shall contain the following information: the time, the approximate location of when the violation happened, the license number in the car of the vehicle, and the identification of the vehicle, whether it's a truck, motorhome, motorcycle, moped, UTV, which is also becoming an issue. They have 24 hours after observing the violation shall deliver the report to the traffic officer. A report which does not contain all the information shall not nevertheless be delivered and shall be maintained by the county or municipality for statistical purposes. What it doesn't say is what happens after 24 hours. So your bus drivers have 24 hours in order to get this report in, and they have to get it to a law enforcement officer. And if they don't meet within the 24 hours, there's no actually responsibility of the citing officer to do that. It doesn't mean that they're relieved of it. It makes it that much more difficult for the justification of giving a UCC, a Uniform Citation Code or something. So here's the next step. Within 48 hours after receiving a report containing all the information in sub 2, so if they don't have all the information, this does not pertain, the traffic officer may perform or prepare a uniform traffic citation under 345.11 and may personally serve it on the owner of the vehicle. If reasonable diligence, the owner cannot be served. This talks about other methods and how they can do it. They can basically go to their house and give it to someone who's a competent adult. And if they can't find anybody, they can either send it in the mail or if they live outside the jurisdiction, they're supposed to send it in the mail. Here's the next part that kind of bugs me. As provided, there shall be no defense to a violation of this section that the owner was not operating the vehicle at the time of violation. Basically, the small print says, if the vehicle was stolen, the person whose vehicle was stolen is not liable for the citation. If the owner provides address of a person who was operating the vehicle, that person can take the citation for not stopping for a school bus. If the vehicle is leased by another company or by some other entity, the driver and there's an issue of trying to determine the liability component. And then basically if someone's test driving a vehicle, they're kind of the dealer provides a traffic officer with the name and address of the person operating the vehicle. This is what our law enforcement gets to handle. So when we talk about the frustration, this is the frustration. This is the onerous burden that puts it in place. A driver has 24 hours to get the information recorded. So if that's one incident that happens on one route, they got 24 hours to get that in. If they have, Mr. Buckholtz, how many stops do you have on your route? How many stops do you have on your route? More than 20? Mr. Vessel, how many stops do your buses make? So that means 20 to 30 stops for each route. That's the citation. That's the pressure for the driver to not only maintain that information that they're doing while also driving the school bus, but also getting the kid on and off the school bus and trying to maintain the surroundings. This is the part that really got me. This is the enforcement component. A vehicle owner or other person found liable under 346.485, which is the statute that applies to going around a school bus, may be required to forfeit not less than $30, but not more than $300. Imposition of liability under 346.48 shall not result in a suspension or revocation of a person's operating license, nor shall it result in demerit points being recorded on a person's driving record. So this is the enforcement. So if you get the bus driver to get the name, the vehicle, the identification, and the location of that incident of the non-stopping or whatever is the conduct, you get that to a law enforcement officer like Sheriff Morochek or the Chief Capero, and they have 2 days, 48 hours in order to issue that citation, and that person receives the citation, and then it goes to court, and if it's convicted, this is the sanction they get for not stopping for a school bus. So this is what we've been doing. Mr. Buchholz, who is a bus driver, asked for the committee to look at this back in 2019. We actually talked about it last summer, and he had some concerns because he's a Head Start bus driver, and so he's actually got the extra plus of having a monitor on the bus. Head Start does have some funding that allows for a second person to be on the bus, and still, it's still difficult to try to ensure that you get the kids on and off the bus safely to the location, whether it's across the road or whatever, because they've got seat belts. And you've got people, when they see these buses coming to a stop or with the lights coming on, they don't want to be, their day can't be impeded with allowing kids to get on and off the school bus, and so they actually speed up and go on. And so in the time that we need their vigilance to be at their most, they're actually focused on getting the kids collected on the bus, off the bus, hopefully across the street without an incident. So Mr. Buchholz asked for this committee to look at that, to try to bring it together, because at the time of the first committee, so we had January, we had a discussion, we tabled it so that we can get the other stakeholders in place. February, we had a meeting, and in March, February, we had a meeting, we kind of outlined what we wanted to try to accomplish, which was, we didn't want to just complain about what the lack of resources were, because we know that we don't have a lot of resources. We wanted to kind of develop an action plan. So then in March, we had testimony from people. We had people coming in. There was more to this, but I pulled this from the minutes. LCO schools talked about, putting together a public campaign, some kind of way to get the word out that stopping for a school bus is actually helpful. She made it reference that yellow lights somehow invite vehicles to speed up and not slow down. Hurricane busing was present. They also agreed that it's a daily problem, that this happens every shift in the morning when they pick the kids up and every evening when they drop them off. They said that it was cost prohibitive to put cameras on buses, that some do have them, some don't, and sometimes they're helpful and sometimes they're not. And then just because of the clarity or just the use of them and the maintenance. And this is like $2,000 to $7,000 per bus. He also raised the issue that a lot of times the drivers will pass on the right side of the bus. So for those of you who are left and right, the right side is where they get out of the bus actually, and so if they're off to the side, they're actually coming around through the ditch and coming up on the other side. Indian Head talked about Head Start has the unique ability to provide monitors, but they also have seat belts, and that with the seat belts it provides extra time, which then actually aggravates the vehicle operators. We had some bus drivers. They said that some hot spots, there were areas where traffic was heavy or there's repeat violations, and they were calling these hot spots. We were going to try to collect that information so that we could have an idea of where either heavy traffic or there was a lot of vehicle movement during the time frame. So we're looking at the morning and mid-afternoon. And then part of the discussion at the meeting was to develop a county ordinance, because as we saw with the statute, there's some steps in between there that makes it somewhat difficult to try to get this done. And because it's so difficult to try to get this reporting in, it's hard for people to take the time out to get this reporting in. And so what this does is it falls on law enforcement. And then people are saying, well, law enforcement doesn't do enough, or law enforcement didn't do this, or law enforcement doesn't do that. And I hope that we've at least illuminated some of the difficulties that law enforcement has in terms of trying to issue this citation. The third and the fourth step to this is the DA's office. The DA's office, and then of course the judge, but we're not ready for that kind of discussion just yet. So what was offered was having the county develop an ordinance. So what you saw was a statutory a statutory offense. It's not a criminal, it's a civil, but it's passed down from the state legislature. What a county has within its jurisdiction, it can devise a county ordinance which can work with the elements of the crime to make it somewhat more user-friendly in terms of issuing a citation, identifying the violation, and then also kind of rendering a judgment. That's where the things that were offered. Here's things that happened. January 2000 or January 2020, 2 kids were nearly struck on Highway 70 near Winter while boarding a school bus. Police were called, the vehicle was stopped, no citation was issued. February, 6-year-old was struck and killed while boarding a school bus. Her 4-year-old sister suffered injuries but recovered. The vehicle was passing on the right side of the bus. Driver is charged with improper passing of a school bus, failure to stop for a school bus, inattentive driving, improper passing on the right. The charges against the driver were filed in June. The incident happened in February. A civil case was filed against from the estate of the deceased. That was filed in March. In March of this year, a child was hit by a vehicle while boarding a school bus in Radisson. The vehicle was passing on the right side. The driver failed to stop for all of the stop signals. Citation is issued. Driver is charged with reckless endangerment, unsafe passing on the right, inattentive driving, failure to stop for a school bus, improper passing of a school bus. The child survived her injuries, but the case is still open. What can we do? These are the issues that I've tried to summarize so that we can have a fruitful discussion. Certain areas see higher traffic volume than others. This create hotspots where failure to stop will likely increase. Excessive speed by vehicle operator near school bus stops. The reporting information required under Wisconsin Statute 346, operator's liability, all of this, the details, they're cumbersome and they're onerous. And they're waived if the time limits are not met, meaning that if they don't make the report within 24 hours, a citation can't be issued. If law enforcement is unable to get that citation served within 48 hours, there's no citation. Too much information and too much work is put in to try to get the citation done, and that makes it difficult for the citation to be issued. Not that citations make it any safer, but it shows that there are other people more than just the bus driver that's trying to make sure that we're working for the safety of the kids. Staffing issues may be a potential solution, but also a problem. So school buses, if they have the ability to put a bus monitor on there, and I'm going to tell you right now, the busing companies are going to say, why do we don't even have money to pay for the services that we have. Putting an extra monitor on there is helpful. It's a great idea, but where does that money come from? Cameras and other different safety equipment is also an option. And then the last one was a location of bus stops. Some of them are on highways, some of them are in intersections. If there's a way that we can work on trying to find a less populated area for the bus stop, but we also deal with the fact that we live in rural communities, and so they're already walking to their bus stop to begin with, and sometimes it's not that easy to be driving a, what is a 30-foot school bus in a, snow-plowed road somewhere out in LCO or Signer or Winter or wherever else. So these are the solutions that I was trying to think of, and these are ideas that I want you guys to kind of put your thoughts around, being conscious of the time. So the county board can draft a county ordinance, which can go through the county board, the full board, that can be better suited to address the failure to stop issue. If we could shift the burden of proof by issuing a citation by making it a civil forfeiture, just meaning that if we make it a county ordinance instead of a state statute, we have a little bit more leeway in terms of the issuing of the citation, a little bit more better time constraints. The DA, law enforcement, and other schools would need to develop a model. County board would review and implement. Another one is to identify the high traffic areas and coordinate with law enforcement to increase police presence in these areas during the times that loading and unloading of school children may be present. We have 3 law enforcement jurisdictions. LCO is here, Sawyer County, and the city of Hayward. It's not as simple as just putting more squads out there. What it is trying to figure out where what's a defined high traffic area, what time do we expect the buses to come through on their schedule, and whether or not we have enough law enforcement on, you know, on that shift during that time to do that. I know that sometimes, and I'm just gonna guess, I think sometimes their empty squads are parked somewhere. That somehow serves as a deterrent. I don't want to say where I learned that from, but other solutions. Develop a funding mechanism to staff a bus monitor for all school buses. A monitor would help with the loading and unloading, ensuring the observation and identification of potential violators. Cameras, if funding is available. So COVID funding is something that has been dispersed. It may be an option. We've all worked with, you know, either the governor's instructions or the federal government's instructions, or sometimes the county government's instructions in terms of what COVID money, what's an allowable expense. I also know that DPI just recently issued regulations in terms of what are like the base expectations for schools to be open. So this may be a moot issue, but this is just an idea to see what we can do about busing, what busing is going to look like, what the school year is going to look like. Mr. Olson and I talked briefly about it, but this is just an idea. Last one, and hopefully Mr. Zufel is still on the line here. Develop a campaign in partnership with parents, schools, and communities to publish school bus safety awareness, print, electronic, and other mediums to get the word out. I mean, if you tell your child they can't go to a website, not only are they there, but they brought all their friends. So we can get the word out. There's another means of doing it rather than just putting it on the parents. I think there's something that we could start putting on school websites, the county website. We can maybe get the businesses. I mean, we've got LCO and Hayward with all of the signs out there saying, you know, read like a cane, or, you know, Migazi, you know, pride. If we can start putting something in there saying, stop for the school buses, don't kill my child while he's getting, you know, trying to go to school. I mean, that's a little drastic, but something like that. So with that, that's it. That's all I got. So I open the floor up for discussion. Anybody that wants to chime in? You guys are killing me, telling you. Talk for 30 minutes and I go into an empty room. It's, you know, case dismissed. Mr. Buckholz.
On the school bus safety issue, getting all these school buses to have a monitor on is a good thing. But somewhere along the lines, they gotta have the training. They gotta have the training to ensure them that they're taking down the names or the numbers of these vehicles. Because the bus driver doesn't always have that chance to do that, because when he's letting the children on or off, he's more watching the kids. So, I mean, it's got to be emphasized, if they're hired as monitors, that gets put in their job description. And I know all the ones that I've come across that I put them down myself. My monitor does not. So it just makes it harder. I mean, I do not catch them all because of that. It's just hard. It's hard to do it. I mean, you need a second person on there to be aware that that's also their job, is to be watching traffic besides with the kids.
Mr. Olson.
Solution-based conversation. I think that have to be in the job description, no doubt. We saw that with our food service distribution, trying to do it with 2 people compared to 3 people. One person needed to be there to assure that somebody was there waiting, and in a bus monitor, it can't be just a disciplined, consequential, reactive position. It needs to be that. I think the training could be something that it could be done pretty easily with the bus monitor, no different than a paraprofessional in our classroom. It would be a very similar role as long as they knew it. I think it'd be a challenge to get the people that would do it, no different than what we're seeing for our bus drivers. I mean, at Stephen's point, for their bus plan going into the 2020 school year, increase their bus routes by 40 to increase or decrease social distancing and meet the criteria. Hutch, myself, and Andy don't have that ability here in Sawyer County with bus drivers. And it's not pay, it's not anything, except there's not the people there. I think those are the challenges we face, and I think if we advertise it for bus monitors, it would be a really good thing. My personal opinion is the marketing and branding portion of it. This is important to us. whether there's something that can be done law enforcement wise or at least signage to let that out, because the $30 fine and a max of 380 isn't going to be the deterrent. That's not going to be it.
Chief Caplero.
Thank you. And I agree with Mr. Olson. I was going to say we need to campaign like we do the click it or ticket or the drunk driving stuff, because that does make a difference. It gets people attention. So if we could do something like that locally. And the other thing that helps us a lot is, and I know Mr. Buckholz, you've helped us before, you tell us where the hot spots are and we try to put squads there. And most of the time people, if they see a squad, they're going to slow down.
Sheriff.
I think there's been good points made here. As far as marketing, you never can market enough. Getting those points out through law enforcement and the media, I think working together to try to accomplish that. I think it's going to continue to be a concern, and approaching it together here is hopefully going to come up with a better outcome. We sure don't want to lose any children.
So with the idea that we're going to have COVID and social distancing, you're going to see a lot more parents driving their kids to school. And so you're going to see a lot more parents in a hurry.
So you talked about identifying high traffic areas, and maybe I missed this because I drive the same route to work every day, but is there some way to bring more attention with like signage at school bus routes, like that it is a school bus stop with reflectors or, structurally on those hot spots or high traffic areas? Maybe if we have flashing lights and bells and whistles, I don't know.
Wessel.
There is, and actually I know we contact every year and actually continuously putting the signs up. It's another yellow sign on the side of the road. Do people pay attention to it? I don't know, but we are very active. I know actually the state actually, and I've had different counties get in touch with me that we're in. Hey, is there any signs we need removed? So they've been active to it or added. And I try to touch base with all the townships, it's counties, it's state highways, it's everything to try to keep on that. But again, is it a yellow sign? And that was one of the reasons they started that a couple years ago, so they're not littered all over. I mean, there's some school bus stop ahead signs that look like were there before all of us were kids. So we've been trying to get them down to keep them accurate. But no, that is something, whether you come up with a new sign, I don't know. But I think the campaign thing is huge. I think that's probably one of our biggest things. The monitoring, I agree. I don't know if they're going to catch it, honestly. I think the cameras, looking for grant money, looking for something like that, I think would be a better option than the monitors. I really feel, like Mr. Olson said, just finding people would be almost impossible. So I guess that's kind of my thoughts.
Ms. Roker, are you on the line?
I am.
So what are your thoughts about drafting a county ordinance that deals with school bus safety?
Couple things. This is actually a somewhat more difficult analysis due to issues of preemption in the state statutes. Mr. Schlinder, you're absolutely correct with respect to the provisions of 346.485. And with respect to those reporting requirements. Now, if the county, so the desire is that the county adopt a similar ordinance, but without those strict reporting requirements. So the question becomes whether the county can adopt such an ordinance that does deviate from state statute. And under WISTAT 34903, it essentially says that municipalities, including counties, are preempted from adopting any inconsistent ordinances unless there is express statutory authority. So what that means is the county couldn't deviate from the provisions of 346.485 unless it has express statutory authority to do so. So then that leads to the question is whether there is express statutory authority. There is a provision in 349.21 that allows for the county to regulate school bus warning lights. So this allows for additional regulation of the lighting system. However, the challenge is 349.21 does not allow for or it does not indicate that there can be any sort of forfeitures for violations of that provision. So again, we start right back to where, or we go right back to where we started with the question of whether a county ordinance has to include those reporting requirements in 346.485. So unfortunately, it's not a simple answer as to whether the county can do what it is being sought to do. One other option that could be considered is to use a different charging statute. And I've looked through specifically under WSStat 94101 is the negligent use of motor vehicle. Now that ordinance has been adopted into the county's peace and good order ordinance. So the county could issue a violation under that statutory provision without having to comply with the notice requirements in 346.485. It could also rise to the level of a criminal citation if the DA wished to charge it under the criminal statutes in 941.01. So that is a very long summary of the preemption issues. And if there are other specific questions, certainly let me know.
I, for one, appreciate the analysis. We think we almost put everyone else to sleep here. So, Mr. Wessel, is there a method from your bus drivers, and Jimbo, you can jump in on this one, to identify areas where there's been high traffic or where there's a more likely than not chance that a violation or a passing issue will happen? Got to grab the mic.
It's like on Highway E and Highway K where a lot of people are heading to work and stuff when the school bus is coming. Highway B, we don't have a whole lot of stops on Highway B, us guys, but those are high areas there.
Is there a report or something that you guys have access to that could help? So if a committee was formed or if some people were going to come in and ask for this, because law enforcement already has a police presence, we're asking for them to be in the vicinity. We'd have to coordinate what those schedules are without binding down what, the flexibility that law enforcement have in addition to. Is this a viable option? I'm looking at law enforcement and the busing companies to see if we can identify hotspots and create police presence.
I think from our standpoint, that is something we have done a lot in the past. If we have hotspots, like I said in the last meeting, that Highway 27 was horrible. And we're in touch with the city or county, wherever it is, quite often. So that's kind of something we've already done in the spots that it's consistent, and we'll continue obviously to do that. So, but yeah, otherwise your main highways are it. And again, we just try to adjust so we don't stop there, But yeah, no, I think as far as the city, county, I don't know what more we can do with identifying hotspots, really. I mean, we pretty much do that, at least my company does.
Lieutenant, you got anything?
They always centralize reporting for our law enforcement agencies are all through dispatch. So if your bus drivers are all getting that information, and when it happens, when a violation happens, it's immediately reported to the comm center, the communications. They'll send a deputy immediately or an officer or what?
Yeah, and what I'm saying is, we have a spot that it happens a lot. We'll call over to whoever and just say, hey, can you help us out? This is happening. We don't call in a specific thing and say, hey, go after this. It's just, hey, Highway 27 by Wild River Inn was awful. And I mean, the city was there a lot. And I believe there was multiple citations written there for a while. And now this year that cooled off being they changed it. But yeah, so I mean, we just turn it over and no, every time we've called, you guys, somebody's always usually there. I mean, it's great. You guys help out. So yeah, I wasn't meaning that at all, but that's, yeah. Right. So we've kind of been doing that.
Yeah, the question wasn't response. It was more in terms of trying to preempt and having just law enforcement in the presence, which usually encourages people to drive the speed limit or at least slow down. And then if they see a squad and the lights are up, they're more than likely going to stop instead of try to do some kind of evading action. So If that was an option, what would be the mechanism to try to resolve that, Sheriff? Do you think that a meeting or something, I mean, the world is going to die with more meetings, but how could we coordinate to help with identifying the hot spots and then having some type of law enforcement? And Chief DeBro, you're on deck with this question.
If the bus companies make a list of the identified spots and law enforcement is happy to work with them and try to get extra patrol, it's the place where the concern is, and whether it's in the morning or afternoon or both, that it's an issue.
Well, I got two chiefs here. One reservation, right? You shouldn't say that.
Kind of piggyback off what the sheriff said is, like, I know in the city, our biggest spots were 27, and then coming in on County Highway B is really bad in the morning. And we do try to monitor them some. And if a bus driver has a specific area that they know, if they let Paul know, Paul usually gets a hold of me and we can go that way. Because I know right before COVID stuff in the busing stop, I was told that there was a hot spot right by the Berkey office in the city, and I had no idea. And we were just going to start up there, and COVID happened and it was over. So we are communicating. We just need to make sure we keep that going.
Chief DeBro.
Yeah, with our, we have a school resource officer at the school all the time, and I try to have them there for the times when the bus are unloading and loading, because we have gotten complaints of right in the school driveway even. And I think we can coordinate that and work close with him to get the info where the hot spots are out, you know, out on the reservation, and work with him on those. But there was also another thing I was thinking of. I don't know if it was mentioned. A lot of the speakers, when they were talking, there was a lot of echo, and I couldn't hear them very good. But the ones that can provide someone to ride along with the bus drivers, maybe we could develop some kind of a training plan there, where the bus driver and the observer work together at these stops, where the observer gets out and makes sure everything's clear. Maybe work out some signals with the kids. You know, go ahead and come forward, stay there. Maybe something like that too would prevent these accidents, and still the observer could be taking down all the information.
Something like in school assemblies or something, talk about what it is to get on off the bus, helping people identify. Ms. Dennis.
We've talked about identifying these hotspots, and I get the impression that where these hotspots are, you want officers there, certain times in the morning, certain times in the afternoon, and they're already working short, and I know that's not always going to be possible. So you talked about signs. So throw up these big signs at these hotspots, make them different colored, whatever. And I think that will help too. You know, like you said, the yellow ones, nobody pays attention to yellow signs anymore.
No, they don't even pay attention to the yellow buses.
All right, so we talked about hotspots. We've talked about bus monitors. We talked about our wonderful state statutes. Any other comments from anybody? I know you're not going to raise your hand, so. Anybody on Zoom who wishes to address the committee?
Yes, this is Chedra White with Indian Head Community Action Agency. I'm sorry I had my hand up, but I'm on my cell phone, so I didn't think you could see. So I supervise Ron, and one of the things, you know, when we were talking about the struggle of even jotting down the information, is that our buses also have a bus phone. And so if bus monitors were able to be hired for the school buses, possibly even having a bus phone where they can click a picture of that license plate number or make and model of the vehicle, might be another resource, because that is such a fast turn around when that car passes the bus, and it is a struggle. We have put in place procedures that the bus drivers pull up alongside of the house. Kids don't cross the road, and that we don't back out of areas. And I know that that's not something that works for all buses, especially the large buses, but we put that into place just to help for that safety piece. And parents, because our children are ages 3 to 5, are required to walk their child out to the bus and sign them into the driver, putting them in our custody. And then again, as we drop them off, signing them out. And again, that takes longer, which agitates drivers, but it is for the safety and security of the children. I just wanted to just share that thought, maybe of another way of collecting that data by having maybe a bus phone on. So if there is a monitor on the bus, they're able to snap that information. And I think that was all I had. I'm sorry, the other thing I was thinking too, I apologize, was, we talk about signage and putting things up and bringing, the campaigns and making people aware. I don't have kids in high school anymore, and I'm not sure how driver's ed works too, if the schools are still providing some of that training as well. But how do we get that information into even driver's ed, or like you said, into those school pep rallies or school assemblies that we're talking about, that to get students to the new drivers and the kids driving currently on board with that? And parent education.
Anybody else on Zoom that wishes to address the meeting?
Pat Sturzel from the Bruce School District. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. We have only one route up in southern Sawyer County. It's in the Excellent area. I talked with my bus driver. He does not have any issues with passing in that area. One thing we did in our district for hotspots is we just had to, for safety purposes, we just bought the HD cameras I know they're expensive, but for our 2 routes that have the most frequent passing of buses, that's something we could do. Then we work well with the law enforcement. They come in, if we can read the license and you can see that the red lights were flashing on the cameras that we have, citations are issued. I have a question though. Like you have the portable speed limit things that you place in different areas. Would that be something with a camera, a portable one, that if you identified hot spot that you would move around perhaps to some of these and maybe catch some of these without actually having a physical person there? And it's just a suggestion. I know it all costs money, but it's an idea out there. That's all.
I was just going to say, and I know this has been talked about before, and I know some parents have dealt with this, but sometimes it's possible to move the location where the children are picked up or dropped off. I think that's very key as well. When you're dealing with hills, curves, and other obstructions, if we can move the pickup to secondary roads instead of primary roads, is very beneficial as well.
Any other comments or questions?
I just got one question. You said on January 2020, there was one incident where 2 kids and no citation was issued. Why wasn't there a citation issued?
I don't know. I just know that there was no citation issued for that incident.
Okay. I live on 27. It's happened twice since I put my grandkids on. And this last time, we changed the bus location off 27. 27 is a bad location to get picked up for anybody. I was just kind of wondering about why there was no citation issued.
I don't know.
Okay, well.
I just know that there was a reported incident and follow-up. There was no citation, so there's probably, statutorily speaking, the time limit expired, and so that there was no effective charging document because of the fact that the statute only requires 24 hours and then 48 hours. But that
the last time it happened to us, it was January 13th, 2020.
Right.
And so I was just kind of wondering, that was on 27, not, Highway 27, Highway 70. And there was a citation issued. So I was just wondering why that one wasn't. So that's what I kind of thought.
Any other questions? Any last comments as we bring this to a close? Go ahead.
We did go through all our routes and we changed a lot of our routes. 27, we tried to get off that as much and 70 as much as possible for those reasons. And also we just invested about $25,000 into cameras. We're gonna put cameras on every bus. So, and they're gonna be high definition HD cameras. So that's school district of Winter. So just
Okay.
wanna let you know.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Slater, do anything?
I like the idea of advertising where these hotspots are. Make more people aware that, hey, you are driving through a hotspot, be careful. I like the idea of monitors on the school bus. Somebody with a camera that can take a quick picture. Maybe retired people, grandparents, whoever would volunteer to do that. And yes, they will need some specific training, but that's something that could be set up fairly quickly and easily. I guess I have a question for the sheriff. When the one ordinance was referred to, and I can't think of what Rebecca called it, it was safety and something that already is a county ordinance, peace and disorder. Can you encourage your officers or to write tickets for that if they see something happening near a school bus? That way, just boom, here's the ticket. That might be a deterrent to some of these people. I guess that's about it.
Mr. Buckholz? No, Ms. Dennis, any last comments? Mr. Hoff? All right, I want to thank everybody for taking time out. Anybody else on Zoom with last comments? If not, this meeting is adjourned. Miigwech.